The moment Trent's knee struck Amara's face, the classroom froze. The sound echoed off the art room walls, sharp, violent, and unforgettable. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Paintbrushes hung mid-air, pencils rolled off desks, and every student stared at the quiet black girl they had mocked all week. Blood traced the corner of her lip, but she did not cry. She simply looked up, not with fear, but with the calm of someone who had already decided what came next. Chloe's smirk faltered. Even Dylan looked sick. Something in Amara's eyes made the laughter die before it started. They thought she was powerless, just another transfer student who would vanish after the weekend. But they had no idea who she really was, or what her silence was about to reveal. Because sometimes the quiet ones carry stories powerful enough to change every face in the room. And before the final bell rings, everyone here will know the truth. If you saw her then, would you have stepped in or stayed silent? The first morning at Lincoln High felt heavier than Amara expected. The hall smelled faintly of cleaning spray and damp paper. Lockers slammed like drumbeats as she moved through the noise, clutching her sketch folder against her chest. Her silver bracelet brushed her wrist. The one her father once said was her reminder to stay steady. She found the art classroom near the end of the hall. The air inside was different, a mix of chalk dust, acrylic paint, and something human, almost hopeful. Mrs. Carter smiled softly when Amara entered. "New face?" she asked. Amara nodded, quiet but polite. The teacher pointed to a desk near the window. Sunlight cut through the blinds, drawing thin lines across her sketchbook. She tapped her pencil 3 times before opening it. For a few minutes it felt safe. The room buzzed with small sounds, paper shifting, brushes rinsing, pencils scratching life into blank pages. Then the laughter started. Soft at first, like static, then louder. Chloe leaned back in her chair, phone in hand. "What are you drawing, new girl?" she said, voice sweet but sharp. Amara did not answer. Trent leaned forward, his grin wide. Maybe she's sketching herself. Needs a mirror for that, though. A few students laughed, pretending not to. Amara pressed her pencil harder against the page until the lead broke. Her heart stayed steady, but her eyes burned. Mrs. Carter turned from her desk, sensing the shift, but the bullies had already looked away, calm, victorious. Amara glanced down at her broken pencil, then at the silver bracelet catching the light. Somewhere deep inside, something changed. Quiet, unseen, but certain. And by the next afternoon, that silence would no longer protect anyone. For a while, it seemed like the teasing might fade. Mrs. Carter paired Amara with Dylan for a class project. And for a moment, things almost felt normal. Dylan tried small talk. He even asked about her drawings. "They're good," he said quietly. Different. Hope flickered. Maybe not everyone was cruel. Maybe she could blend in after all. But hope has a short life in hallways that feed on silence. Later that day, during lunch, Chloe passed her table with a smirk. Her phone was in her hand again. Seconds later, laughter rippled through the cafeteria. On the screen, Amara's sketch, a portrait she had drawn in art class, now had words scrawled across it. Pretty for charity. Her throat tightened, but she did not speak. She just folded the sketch, placed it in her bag, and walked away. Each step was slow, careful. The only way to keep her balance when everyone around her looked and whispered. That evening, she sat by her window, a silver bracelet glinting under the streetlight. She opened her father's old notebook, pages filled with notes from his court cases, his handwriting firm and patient. One line stood out: "Power does not always shout. Sometimes it waits for the right moment to speak." She traced the words with her finger. The ache in her chest eased just enough to breathe again. The next morning, Amara entered class before anyone else. The smell of paint thinner hung in the air. She set her sketchbook on her desk, opened to a new page, and began to draw. Not faces, but moments. Every insult, every smirk, every silence became lines on paper. By the time Chloe walked in, Amara was already finished. Trent leaned over her shoulder. "Still pretending you're special?" he said. She looked up calmly. "No," she replied. Just recording the truth. Laughter rose again, but Dylan's didn't. His eyes lingered on the page, uneasy. He looked away first. If you were there, would you have spoken up or stayed silent? At the end of the day, Chloe's phone buzzed. A message flashed across the screen. Anonymous. Simple. You should see the board in art class. When she walked in, the laughter died. On the classroom wall hung a single drawing, Chloe, Trent, and Dylan exactly as they looked when they mocked her. Every detail is perfect, every sneer immortalized, no words. Just truth in pencil and shadow. The room went silent. Then Chloe whispered, "Where did you get that?" Amara met her eyes and said, "I was there." And that was when the fear began to change sides. The next morning, whispers moved through the halls faster than the bell. Everyone had seen the drawing. Some admired it. Some feared it. But no one laughed anymore. Chloe walked in first, her usual confidence gone. Trent followed, jaw tight, avoiding every stare. Dylan trailed behind, his eyes down, guilt heavy in every step. The classroom felt colder than usual, the hum of the fluorescent lights louder than words. Mrs. Carter stood by the art board, silent. She did not remove the sketch. Instead, she looked at Amara and nodded. A quiet approval, not for revenge, but for truth. Chloe broke first. "You think this makes you better?" she snapped. "You embarrassed us." Amara's voice was calm. "No, I showed you what you did." Trent clenched his fists. "You set us up." Amara met his eyes. "You set yourselves up." "I just drew what everyone saw." The room went still. Even the students who once laughed stayed quiet. Dylan looked up at her, eyes wet. "We went too far," he said softly. "I'm sorry." Amara nodded once. "Then start doing better." Mrs. Carter finally spoke. "Art tells the truth," she said. "And the truth always finds its way out." The bell rang, but no one moved. Chloe wiped her eyes before storming out. Trent followed, head low. Dylan stayed a moment longer, then placed Amara's broken pencil on her desk, the same one she had snapped on her first day. She picked it up gently, like it meant something again. As the last student left, Mrs. Carter whispered, "You changed more than you know." Amara looked at the sketch on the wall, still, silent, powerful. "I just stopped pretending it didn't hurt," she said. For the first time, the classroom felt peaceful. Share this if you still believe kindness can change the world. Outside, the rain had stopped. The clouds broke open just enough for sunlight to touch the art room windows, quiet, golden, forgiving. The next week passed softly, like the world had taken a deep breath. The laughter in the hallways returned, but it sounded different now, gentler, real. The same walls that had once echoed with cruelty now held quiet respect. Amara sat in her usual seat by the window. The sunlight fell through the blinds, just like her first day, but this time it felt warm, not harsh. Her sketchbook lay open to a clean page. For the first time in weeks, she was not drawing faces. She was drawing peace. Dylan walked in, hesitant. He placed a folded note on her desk. "I joined the art club," he said. "I want to learn how to draw the truth, not hurt." Amara smiled faintly and nodded. It was not forgiveness in words, but in stillness, it was enough. Later, Mrs. Carter entered, removing the drawing from the board. "Do you want this back?" she asked. Amara looked at the sketch, the one that had changed everything. "No," she said softly. "Let it stay here. Maybe someone else needs to see it." The bell rang, and as students filed out, Amara slipped on her bracelet. The light caught it again, silver and sure, the same way it had when everything began. Outside, the air smelled like rain and new beginnings. Amara paused at the door, glancing back once more. The classroom was empty now, but it felt full of truth, of lessons, of quiet strength. Because sometimes standing still, refusing to break, is the loudest thing a person can do. Subscribe for more stories where silence turns into strength. Would you have had the courage to stay silent, or the heart to speak? Cruelty may shout, but truth always whispers louder. Strength is not noise. It is calm, steady resolve. Forgiveness does not erase pain. it transforms it into power. The smallest act of courage can silence the loudest cruelty. Tell me in the comments, have you ever seen courage like this? Share this story if you believe compassion still matters.